This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Hustro.com, a leading construction management software tool. To come back full circle, but I might as well throw it on the table since it's in my head, is innovative, creative deals. Shall we call them deals, like employee-employer deals? Let me throw one out on the table, for example. In the software world, they offer deals to employees such as virtual shares within the business. They're not actual shares in terms of, they don't have a say within the business, etc., etc. But should the business obviously go and be sold, these virtual shares are worth money. Now, we're talking construction, we're not talking software, but have you seen sort of any innovative, creative ways where it's not just the nominal value of upfront salary, that there's other things, like, and I'm not talking about cars and stuff like that, but right. Have you seen any sort of creative, innovative packages that clients have done?
Not with entry-level, line-level staff necessarily.
Yeah. Fair
there's
point.
ESOPs, the employee share, stock ownership program.
Ownership, yeah. Shared ownership, yeah.
So there's ESOPs, which is a little bit different, and that's the corporate structure, right?
Yeah.
But I've not seen that with, line level folks. Have I seen it with, your top executives, your VPs, and those, especially once you get into VC markets? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer back again. I've got Traci Austin with me, and she's an amazing expert in the area of HR, which I know we're all struggling with in some way, shape or form, whether it's employment issues or whether it's talent finding and nurturing, whether it's issues with culture within your organization. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here. Traci is founder and chief talent officer of Elevated Talent Consulting, a leading expert in this area, and I want to talk to her about a lot of topics, but one in particular in terms of if you don't have the resources to bring in a recruitment company or a consulting company and you want to start doing some of these interviews yourself, what do you say? How do you say it? What's the process? What's the one that's going to give you the best results to find the best people and then to hold on to those people? That's just one of the topics. So stay tuned. Listen to this show because it's going to be a really, really good, impactful show, and hopefully you'll take something back into your business from it. Traci, welcome to I'm the Gaffer. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this topic. These are so much fun.
Yeah, you seem to be having a lot of fun, more so than me these days. So I'm jealous. You are founder of this company. Tell me, how long are you up and running with this business?
It's been almost 8 years. And before that, what I was doing was building HR departments from the ground up for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations, many of which were trade organizations.
Wow, well done. So you've lived the experience. You've been in the business for what, 20 years, 15 years, or what way?
Yeah, 23 now, maybe 24. I don't know. Now I'm aging myself. Good thing I just have my hair colored so it's not gray, right?
But at least you have hair. I've got a problem in that department at the moment, but it's not getting fixed anytime soon either. Tell me, let's get straight into it actually. I want to take on a couple of employees. I have got loads of work, and every time I go and try and find somebody, I meet them for a cup of coffee. I get a good feeling for them. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll give them a shot. But more times than not, it's actually cost me more time, money and expense. And I'm really down as a person because I'm not happy that I can't just get the right people and I can't make them stay with me if I do get the right person. Help, Traci. What do I do?
Absolutely. So we're going to go backwards before we go forwards. And here's what I mean by that. It is really defining what you want in the role specifically, but also defining what you want in a person that matches your culture. And so when we're working with organizations, the first thing that we do is we do some pre-work before we step into posting and bringing folks in for an interview. And that starts with kind of two key pieces. One is the culture. So what is the culture that you are wanting or creating inside of your organization. And here's how we define culture. We define culture as the behaviors that you allow or do not allow inside of your organization. So I'd like to ask you some questions as we go to hire this person in, okay? And so my first question for you is I want you to think about your best employee, your rock star that's probably been with you for quite a while. What are the behaviors that this person has that has you go, I want more of them?
They're outgoing, they're innovative, and they're full of energy.
Okay. So outgoing, innovative, full of energy. Amazing. And when they're showing up at work, how are they showing up? And these are things like they're showing up on time, they have integrity, and that they're not stealing tools or taking things home, right? They're collaborating and mentoring new people. Like, what are those things for you?
They would be very good in terms of dealing with the guys on the ground and making the link between the guys on the ground and the client.
Okay. And when you put that into a behavior, what do they do that makes the link between the guys on the ground and the client?
So they take away any sort of friction or any sort of, I wasn't sure, or I didn't get the right direction, or they see the problem before the problem exists, and they have a process mind or a procedure mind or a systematic way of dealing with what we need to do in order to get the job done, but also keep the client informed about the progress of that.
Okay. So when that happens, what are those behaviors? So let me give you some examples of what I'm hearing, and you can tell me if I'm on or off. Okay. So it may look like when they're talking with a client, they're really curious and they're not putting out answers. They're curious about what they need and they're connecting the dots with the client to ensure that they understand it correctly. And then they're taking that back to the team and doing the same thing with the team on the build to ensure that it's matching what the client expectations are.
Correct. And then when we believe that's what we set out to do in the first instance, and then when we actually got in to do it, when there was a change or a problem or something wasn't the same as the way it was described, that same individual has the trust on both sides that the workers would ring that person and go, it's not exactly as they said it was. We need to have a rethink. And then rather than burying the heads, that person would go to the client and go, we've got an issue here. Let's work it out and strategize it in such a way that we can, learn from it, but also deal with it because it is an issue now and it's going to get a bigger issue if we don't deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And so what I'm hearing is that this person is really a collaborator, that they're bringing the team together. They're also building the confidence of your team specifically versus, kind of tearing them down. They're not playing whack-a-mole on each other's weaknesses. They're really building folks up, yet holding some very strong accountability.
100%.
Okay. Amazing. So is this enough to play with?
This is enough to play with. Yes, go for it.
Amazing. Okay. So what we then do is once, and by the way, you don't have to have me to do this, but, have these conversations. They don't really work well when you have them with yourself. So please have them with someone, right? That's curious. So but now what we've done is I have a very good idea of what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Now what I want to do is I want to actually put that down on paper so that I can line out what exactly is it that I'm listening for, and then what are the interview questions I'm going to ask in order to elicit if this person has these capabilities or not. And so when we do this, there's a couple things we do. One is we create something called a scorecard. And I'm happy, do I have one that I can give you? Yes, I do. So I can give you an example of this that you can go ahead and put in the show notes for your listeners to kind of take a look at.
Yeah, I'd love that. That is a brilliant, for anybody listening or watching, because we're obviously on YouTube as well, that is a really good tool to be given by anybody because I've used them in the past and they're so accurate. Like it's really, really, really good tool for anybody to take home. So thank you very much for offering that to the listeners and viewers, Traci.
Yeah. And so when you create a scorecard, you want to create it for every position. And your scorecard is going to have kind of 3 buckets to it. The first bucket is going to be the natural behaviors of an individual. And here, the individual that you just described is somebody that is going to be a leader. So they're not going to necessarily be somebody that is, going to completely collaborate with the team. We need them to lead the team, right? We also need them to be persuasive, right? So, yes, there's some analytical pieces in what you've described, but we really need them persuading the team, persuading the client, enrolling each person there. So those are the things we're looking for in the behaviors. My guess is they probably need to, be able to move pretty quickly. They're going to be a change agent. If they see something that isn't working correctly, they're going to immediately be able to change that, create the course correction, and have the folks on their team that can be the executors. So they're not the implementers of change, they are the change agents. And then that detail and that follow through is going to be really important to meet the multiple competing priorities of all of the players that you're working with. So like if your company is a GC, you're managing, 15 different subs, and sometimes all on the same day that all have different schedules and different issues with materials coming in and whatnot. That's, you have to be able to juggle and hold accountability within that. So that's that first level. The second level is going to be around the culture. And what I heard you say very clearly is we're looking for someone that has integrity, that has that teamwork values in it, but also has, you're not going to like this word, compassion is what I'm coming up with, but that's not the word that I want. They have this. Thank you.
Yeah.
I say this to a group of guys and they boo me out of the room. So I'm like, okay, what's a different word I can come up with that they're going to connect with? I mean, come on now.
Yeah. All the alpha males. All the alpha males in the room.
Yeah.
Go.
And then we have, so the first bucket is our head, which is our behaviors. Our second bucket is all around our culture. I call it heart. Again, you might boo me out of the room, but it's the culture. And then the third bucket is your briefcase, which is your skill sets. So the person coming into this role, my guess is they have to have been in the field. They have to have swung the hammer. They have to have been in, the backhoe. They have to have been doing whatever the thing is that they're doing, not just somebody that went and got a 4-year degree and never worked in the field. And so that is then what we create within the scorecard. And with a scorecard, we have a 1 to 5 rating, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, where we're actually lining out what it is each of those are. So when we're doing an interview, we're asking questions. And then, as we go through the interview, anyone who's interviewing, then we've already defined what good and what great and what horrible looks like, that we can just circle that thing. The beauty of this now is that scorecard for hiring, it changes a little bit, but now that's your performance management tool. So what we're doing is we're setting folks up for success on the job in the interview, because we're not going to sell them a book of goods and shift it as soon as we hire them.
And it sounds very much like a risk assessment process where you're assessing the risk of actually taking this person on by evaluating them with a 1 to 5 rating system.
I've never looked at it as a risk assessment. That's hilarious. It is. I've never looked at it that way, though. That's awesome.
Well, they're a risk to the business because they're costing them money.
True. True. And can I challenge that?
Go for it. I'm all ears.
Because if our mindset in the interview process is how great of a risk are they going to be, I think you're setting yourself up to fail. True.
But I've had, and this is all theoretical. This is not a lived experience comment. But we've had people here that we thought were going to be good, and they became a wrecking ball as soon as they came in. They had a power trip. They upset the clients. They upset the guys. But in fact, when they gave it an interview, they were brilliant, and they mastered the interview very well. And so, it cost us a lot of money to move that person on, shall we say, hypothetically. So that was a risk to the business.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with that. I 1,000% agree with that. And the reason why I bring up mindset is it is up to us of how we want to think about something, but it typically ends up coming true. So I love to look at that scorecard as how do I bring in the best possible person, and how do I ensure that my entire hiring team and leadership team is 100% aligned on what good looks like? And so it becomes a very powerful performance management tool for my leaders, because guess what? If they start bringing folks in that continue to fail and they're following this, now I can hold them accountable for poor hiring versus, oh, well, we just don't have anyone good to hire.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love that. Yeah, 100%. I totally get that. And then also, as you were talking there, Tracy, I was thinking it's probably no harm to have another person beside you doing the scorecard, because they'll probably come out with a different number more than likely.
Are you looking to spend less time on paperwork and more time making things happen on site? Hustro.com is the simplest construction management software out there. Streamline inspections, defect reporting, and all your project documentation all in one app. With Hustro.com, contractors are seeing 75% less time on inspections and reports, 47% faster corrective actions, and almost a third quicker decision making. Hustro.com is the simplest software to manage construction projects, period. Level up your site efficiency today with Hustro.com.
Yeah. So before any interview happens, there's typically some work that happens before that interview, right? And that is, we're going to determine what our core values and what those behaviors are for the organization to be able to fill in that culture or that heart piece, right? And that allows us to ensure that we've got alignment within our company, that it's this building people up, not somebody throwing a come along across the yard at another guy, right? Like, and so those are things that when we look at these, it's saying, hey, let's all get on the same page as to what the minimal expectations are for behaviors in the organization. So we're doing this as that leadership or the hiring team. And a lot of times, like when I do this with clients, I'm typically working with one person on it. And then we bring the final into the room with the leaders to say, okay, here's what we're laying out. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. And we have some quick back and forth on it because we don't want to get the whole team into this long process. You don't have time for that. We're going to do it with one person. And then once you get the first one set, it's pretty easy to go position by position, because what you're changing is, the briefcase, which you already pretty much have laid out. But when we know where we're going, it is so much easier to get there. And what I find in most of the, trades clients we work with is that they haven't defined what they want, which is why they're failing.
Yeah. There's another argument as well, is probably they're not offering the market value for what they want. So they have all these high aspirations of taking on the best. And then they have the lovely scorecard. And then it comes to the job and it's like they're 10,000 less than the nearest competitor for that role, and they wonder why there's a problem with hiring poor people.
100%.
So how do we get around that?
and that becomes some conversations, around what is it that they want. And a lot of times, we're pulling the compensation data, but we're also pulling the data around what are the benefits and what are the things that they specifically need. And as soon as, what I find so often with these companies is like that first round, they're like, well, we did this and it didn't work. I go, yeah, because your pay's still too low. And then what happens is they start losing some of their best team members to $20,000, $30,000 higher at other firms. And now we can look at it and say, okay, here's the cost of that. What is the cost of that in revenue? And once typically I'll bring in the CFO or the accounting person in to look at this, and they're like, here's how we can tie the dots together. So much of what we do is tying the dots together to pull the picture in versus looking at things in very specific silos.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's a really useful conversation, because we all kind of have this default of, can I get somebody lower than the market value, and that they're going to be an A player within the team, and it's just like, it just costs you more money in the long run. I think there is a figure on it, isn't it, in regards to how much a bad hire costs a company on average, and it's ridiculous. I can't remember what it is, but in terms of I love the fact that you said about the revenue. Let's have a look at your revenue. Now, obviously, revenue is one thing, profit is another thing. So would you be looking at the net profit, gross profit, and then sort of coming up with a valuation based on?
Absolutely. So, what I like to look at this is it's almost like, all right, what check do you receive from hiring a high quality person? So let's say that over the course of the year, this laborer that you bring in will bring you in, $300,000 in revenue. They're going to cost you $80,000 by the time you put salary, benefits, et cetera, in that. And then you know that your other overhead stuff is, let's say, $30,000. So your net gain there, what's my math? What was I at? 110 out of 300. So we're at what?
I'm back here somewhere.
Okay. But you can kind of see the math that I'm doing, right? Is
Yeah,
what's the revenue that this person's going to bring in, and then we're going to take off, the direct and the indirect costs of that. Well, that is the check that this person's bringing in.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, if we're squabbling over 5 or 10 grand, is it worth it to you?
100%. I'm gonna completely twist the conversation probably in a different direction, and we might end up having to come back this way again to come back full circle. But I might as well throw it on the table since it's in my head. Is innovative, creative deals. Shall we call them deals, like employee-employer deals? Let me throw one out on the table. For example, in the software world, they offer deals to employees such as virtual shares within the business. They're not actual shares in terms of, they don't have a say within the business, et cetera, but should the business obviously go and be sold, these virtual shares are worth money. Now, we're talking construction, we're not talking software, but have you seen sort of any innovative, creative ways where it's not just the nominal value of upfront salary, that there's other things, like, and I'm not talking about cars and stuff like that, but have you seen any sort of creative, innovative packages like that clients have done?
Not with entry-level, line-level staff necessarily.
Yeah. Fair
there's
point.
ESOPs, the employee share,
Yeah.
stock ownership program.
Ownership, yeah. Shared ownership, yeah.
So there's ESOPs, which is a little bit different, and that's the corporate structure, right?
Yeah.
But I've not seen that with, line level folks. Have I seen it with, your top executives, your VPs, and those, especially once you get into VC markets? Yeah, absolutely. I will name, I am not an expert in this area, and this is where we get an attorney involved, and we get some of our transition management consultants involved. So I've definitely seen it, but I've never seen it with line level staff. What I have seen with line level staff is really getting curious with them on what is it that's important to them. And so I'm going to go two ways with this. The first one is, are they here for a paycheck, or are they here because they want to be here, right? So I look at this as two curves. I'm going to use my hands. Okay. So we've got the want to or the have to curve, which is here. They're here because they have to have a paycheck. And then we have the want to curve, which is like way up here. So when we look at the folks that want to be there, that's where we can start to say, okay, what makes them want to be here? And it's typically they're in the right role. Their team is turning up their strengths. They're not playing whack-a-mole on their weaknesses. Their leaders leading them. They want to be led, and then they're aligned with the culture. So there, we can do different things with bonuses, but also if they want to be there, what is it that they actually want? And how do we get there? What I find with a lot of the line level construction folks is they didn't have an opportunity early on to, whether it was further their education or further those things. So when we can give them those significant growth opportunities that completely change their life by 3x their salary, guess what? They're going to be so loyal to you within that because they want to. And that's where we see some of the innovative and creative things happening.
Yeah, like I have seen some areas where I thought like it was very good, where they, brought in financial management discussions with employees. So like, okay, you're now going to get this, 80,000 or 100,000 salary if you're in at that level. What are you going to do with that money, and how are you going to manage that money? And if you bring people in and have an open conversation with them, because you're trying to improve the life of their family and the life of themselves, so that the work and life is kind of, back to your hands, is sort of that it's balanced. So, maybe you don't need the 100 grand salary. Maybe we give you, less of a salary, but you're getting tax advice that will tell you that you're going to save on tax and government tax by putting it into this structure that we've created for employees. And you don't have to put this money into a pension or whatever it is, but we're going to give you a solid plan and a solid financial advisor. And I thought that was really powerful, because I see a lot of really good, intelligent people working in construction, but when it comes to finance, they're actually, I wouldn't like to use the word ignorant, but they're not probably focused or as focused on what to do with this money. So all they think is, oh, well, I'm getting 100 grand salary, and that's amazing salary. But like, by the time you get that money, what is your net salary? And it might not be that much, because you're in a higher tax bracket. You're paying higher tax, and if employers want to attract better people, if they have these open conversations about how to improve, the salary package, that it doesn't have to be the nominal value. It could be something else. Like you said, education could be another part of it. It could be less hours. It could be better hours that suits their family and suits themselves.
Yeah. And I love to look at this as seasons of life. Like, where is someone at in their life right now, and what exactly do they need? And we've got several folks we work with, whether it's been, interviews on our podcast or clients, that will bring in like the Dave Ramsey coaches, right? To say, hey, let's really look at, what was that?
I know, Dave Ramsey, it just keeps popping up on my feed. So like,
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah. And
but
the first thing is always
really,
like, get rid of the car.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Traci.
But but here's the thing with that is, we don't all start in the same playing field, right? Like, we don't all start with the same education at home with our parents. We don't all start at the same level. So when we can start to kind of teach some of these about, hey, what does savings look like? What does compound interest look like? And set folks up to be successful within that, that's a huge, huge impact for our employees. Another one is coaching. And I've seen this in a lot of different construction firms, is offering coaching. We know mental health is one of the key issues right now, especially in males. And we know that within the organizations, and I don't have the exact percentage, but we've moved into a society where so many folks are living alone, meaning they're going home and they don't have a support network. They don't have that partner at home. They don't have necessarily that family, because we're having kids much later. So now all of a sudden we've shifted into, there's other behaviors that are happening. We don't have those close friend circles. So that leads to huge mental health issues. So when we have some coaching, or when we can create some of these networks that's not around going to the bar and drinking every night, that creates really good habits, that also starts to shift the conversation, but it shifts the quality of work as well. And it shifts the fog out of the brain into that, focused on what is here in front of us. Because I love to ask the question, what are we moving towards versus moving against? And so often when I'm out in the field having conversations, it's all this complaining about what we're moving against versus what we're moving towards. So there's two questions I ask in every kind of, the annual one-on-ones. And I love our clients and our listeners to ask these two questions. The first one is, what is a personal bucket list item that you have? So I'm going to ask you. What's a
you're
personal
asking
bucket
me.
list item?
Put the Maldives in there. Trip to the Maldives would do me nice. Thanks very much.
Amazing. Okay. That's awesome, Gavin. And what is a professional bucket list item?
Oh, wow. There's one. I usually do the curve balls here. So I'm going to have to give you a fictitious one in this regard. An MBA. Let's do an MBA. I do not want to do an MBA, by the way. If anyone is trying to tap me up for an MBA, I do not want to do one. But yeah, put it down there.
Hello, Gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have. But in order to bring on more great guests,
we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah. So the reason why I love to ask these two questions as a leader is now I know what drives you. You want some time off to go to the Maldives. You know, you didn't talk about who that's with or why or any of those things, but like we would get further into that conversation, and you want to obtain your MBA. So what I do as a leader now is I know what some of those motivations are for you. And I'd ask some questions about, well, why do you want an MBA? What will that actually do for your life? What will the Maldives do for your life? Blah, 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 right? But now I've got a goal that I can work towards with you, and I'm going to tie that thing back to my business goals. So as a leader, the thing that I'm going to continue to keep doing is tying business goals with personal goals. And what that does is that shows I'm invested in you as a person, not just as a widget that's going to go create me a check of, $200,000 a year. I want the and both of it. And what that does is that creates stronger relationships. How do we retain great key people? Is we build incredibly strong relationships that we have a joint commitment to the business goals and the personal goals.
Love it. Absolutely love it, because I think if people sit back as employers, if they sit back and think about it, if you can, what you've just said there is very powerful, because you're basically within the hearts and minds of the family members of the worker, because they're going, wow, your employer actually done that for you. That's really pretty cool. And it has a positive impact on the family, which then the family then buy into the fact that daddy or mammy is working for this particular company. And, we love the fact that they work for this company because, there's a positive impact within the family unit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me give you an example of this. I just spoke at the Trimble conference this week in Las Vegas. And so, we did a session on recruitment and retention for the trades, right? Kind of exactly what we're doing today. And there were several folks in that session, and one of the questions I asked them is I said, how did you get here? And, I kind of get this like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how did your butt get in this seat in Vegas today? Right. And some of them were like, well, I was tapped on the shoulder. Some of them were like, well, I wanted to. Right. And then the next question is, is your family coming out? Yeah, my wife's never been to Vegas and we're super excited. She's flying in. She'll be here in 10 hours. Awesome. So what we're seeing a personal bucket list. I want to take my family to Vegas, and a professional one. I want professional development with 5,000 other people, and I want to learn more about the software that we use inside of our organization. Like those, and that's not a huge cost to the company, right? Like those aren't significant costs, but the impacts on the lives of those folks can be very significant.
Yeah, but I've also seen it gone completely the other direction, where it's gone too far to the right, where some of the leading software companies in the world have kind of created an environment where you actually can't leave the workplace because the gym is in the workplace, cafeteria is in the workplace, Starbucks is in the workplace, the Macy's is in the workplace. You don't have to go anywhere. You're staying here.
The Venetian does a really good job at you not leaving the property.
Yeah, you can't go too far. But I love the fact we're having this conversation, because and I'm I'm getting great. It's a lot of stuff that I believe in as well, personally, that you could, not to go over the line too much into people's lives, but to I love that, to make a positive impact, to sit down and talk about two things that that person wants. And it could be financial planning. I want to provide for my family in a better way and make my money work for me. And can you help me do that? Oh yeah, I'll put you in touch with our financial director, and you can sit down with her or him and have a chat and work things out between you. So there's lots of, you can get creative. As well as that, I've seen other companies where they have said to some of their A players and some of their B players, by the way, guys, the bigger plan here is we're actually going to have a management buyout. And that's what our goals are as a business, is we're going to have an exit plan here. And if you want to be on that management buyout, it's a 10-year plan, and you stick with us for the 10 years, and you could be end up with a nice slice of the cake at the end of the road.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. The other one I want to point out that I find becomes really helpful, and there's several ways that you can do this, but one of them is legal support. So whether that is, and I'm not saying like, you're going to provide somebody with a divorce attorney or whatever else, right? Like that's one that comes up a lot. Like there's others, right? But, I've seen several times where employee assistance programs that have some of that legal advice of, hey, how do I do some of these things? Because I find a lot with line level staff, there ends up being some legal issues. And for whatever reason, it's a DUI, it's a whatever, like whatever it is, right? And again, this is not something that's necessarily talked about, but if there are external things going on, it 100% impacts what happens at work. And look, I'm not one that has a huge bleeding heart that's like, oh my gosh, we have to do all these things. No, it's an and both. There is a return that you are expecting out of this, and that needs to be very clear as well. However, those are, if we're looking for creative opportunities here, like that is one. And the best way that I see it is through like an employee assistance program where they get a conversation with somebody that points them in the right direction and may make, here's 3 attorneys that could be really great for you, but it gets the conversation started so that their mind can be back at work. Because when our mind is elsewhere, not only does it create productivity issues, it creates safety issues.
Well done. Well said. Very well said. I love the fact as well that you brought in about the fact that people, everyone has a different stage of their life that they are at. And I've really noticed that in our business as well. That's, there's certain individuals when they're at a certain stage of their life, they're a lot more calmer, a lot more mature, a lot more focused, a lot more grateful, a lot more settled in terms of the business. And then you have other younger sort of demographic individuals who are just go, 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 go. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going. And, hold on, horse, hold on. Yeah, pull it back there a little bit. But I'm actually what I was thinking was, they're probably the people that you could put on like an hourly rate rather than a salary and say, look, this person is really just smashing it. Obviously you have to manage the workload so that they don't explode and blow themselves up in terms of overworking. But like, if they have this energy and this kind of like, I don't have to go home because I don't have kids, I don't have a wife, I'm at a stage, or a husband, I'm at a stage in my life where I just want to I just want to smash it. I want to make as much money as I can. And there's nothing really wrong with that. But like, I think, when you mentioned about people being in a different stage of their life, it's so, so important that you actually get a bit of background as regards, well, are you married? Have you got kids? Are you single?
Yeah, just don't ask that in the interview because you're going to bring in some labor law issues. So
you are. You are. Thank you for mentioning that. And but it is a fair point that you could take. It's now that we're on this conversation, and I was going to bring this up. You can take the interview out of the corporate environment of an office and go for a cup of coffee with someone if you think that the next stage is, I think I'm going to go for this person, but just want to get a bit of a feel for who they are. Are they into sport? Are they into reading books or whatever it is? Like, you don't really get that in an interview unless you kind of have maybe a fireside chat, for example.
Yes, for sure.
So would you encourage that? You would?
So the compliance HR part of me is like, be careful. And, and then this human connected piece is, yes, I want to know that we have shared values that tie into what our organizational values are. Because if your personal values are not aligned with our organizational values, we're going to have an issue. And so kind of understanding what those things are, and especially at the stages of life, if you're, in your career where you're climbing, amazing. As an organization, do I want to harness that? For sure. I 1,000% want to harness that, but I want to make sure that our goals are aligned, because if they're not aligned, it's going to blow up in both of our faces, and it's not going to be good for the business or for their personal career. And so, this is where we're always looking at, do we have aligned and shared goals? And if not, that's okay, but are they close enough that we can still align on these things? And that is really what I'm looking to get out of the coffee conversations, right? And so the answer is it okay to have those conversations? Yes. Just be careful of what the view of it is in and under. And as long as you can always tie it back to the job, you're fine.
Yeah, and set the tone and the context of the conversation with a clarity before you actually go and do the coffee meet or whatever it is. That this is like just me and you meeting for a chat. The other side of this whole scenario is, what if I have to get rid of it or her and it hasn't worked out? Do you pull the trigger as quick as you can? Like, how do you manage that chaos?
Yeah. So we have something that we call talent pathway plans. And a talent pathway plan is how we move folks through and or out of the organization. And there's times where we put folks on a happy alumni talent pathway plan. And,
I'm all ears.
so what was that?
I'm all ears. Talk to me about this.
So a happy alumni talent pathway plan, right, is we don't want to burn bridges. And yet at the same time, like, there's times where their choices mean that they no longer have a bright future at your organization, but they may have a bright future at another organization. And my job is to illuminate the brighter future somewhere else.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love that. Traci, when can you start? And I'm only messing. Anyone that works for us, like, that was a joke. But no, like, we have a contracting business and we have that model in place that, just because the client doesn't feel that the relationship can be taken further for whatever reason, we're always looking ahead and saying, okay, well, look, we don't. There could be, for whatever reason, that person just hasn't worked out. But it's through no fault of anybody's, and there's always somebody out there for somebody, is what I'm trying to say, and I think that's probably fits into that model that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, there's a couple of different ways here, right? One of them is I'm very transparent. So I like to have these conversations early, right? If there's things that are not aligned, I'm going to name it up front. And this is a part of our accountability kind of process. We talk a lot about this in our leadership development programs. We talk a lot about this in the coaching that we do with the executive leaders. Is when we're holding folks accountable, we need to have a conversation about the impacts of their behavior. And what that essentially looks like is, hey, Gavin, in this contracting that was specifically going, you did X, Y, and Z. What do you think the impact of that behavior was on our team? And I stop talking. And then I say, what do you think the behavior of that was on the client that we were just serving? And I stop talking. And guess what? Silence is a beautiful thing. I will let that silence sit there like a rotten egg for as long as I need to. And then I say, what impact do you believe that this behavior has on your opportunities here? And I let them tell me. And then I will add my pieces in of what I agree or don't agree with. And then I go to a limit and say, look, this is what has to happen in order for X, Y, and Z to happen. If this doesn't happen, we have a different future that we need to look at together. What do you think that looks like for you?
Yeah, I don't fancy being in a room with you, Traci, anymore.
I thought you loved this conversation.
You're scaring me now. Wow, the Grim Reaper. You're the Grim Reaper. I'm gonna get the trapdoor any minute now.
And it's not meant to be a trap, but what it is meant to be is, I don't have to know all the answers, and I don't have to make all the decisions. When we start empowering our people, what we do is we allow them the time and the thought process to understand the impacts of their behaviors. And now I don't always have to be the bad guy. What I do need to do is create the presence to hold the space for them to be able to think through it. And what I won't allow is I won't allow blame, and I don't shame. But what I do is I create accountability through the conversations.
Yeah, you're putting a mirror up to people and saying, this is you. This is what happened here. And we're not people fixers. I think that's pretty much, that's very powerful what you just said there. Like, you know, that we all seem to find the need to go in and sort of have these hard conversations and kind of dance around it, or kind of, you know, feel that, you know, oh, we have to fix the person. We don't have to fix the person. If that person
And
done
that's
that,
what we can't. We
we can't.
can't. It's not. We can't. The only person we can control is ourselves, and we can control our thoughts, and our thoughts create our feelings create our actions. That's it.
Or as someone said to me recently, patterns lead to behaviours. So, you know, chances are if this person done this time, the chances are they've done it before somewhere else, or done something in the same context. You know, so basically, yeah, you're kind of setting them up to sort of say, well, look, how do you think we need to fix you? And you probably get the answer that you probably had in the back of your mind, is that they don't really know how to fix it, because it's a consistent trait within them that they will always do this no matter what. I can see why people would need a Traci Austin on their speed dial. Let me let me throw you a few curveballs if you don't mind, Traci, seeing as you've been so good with your time. Some random questions, okay? Knowing what you know now, Traci Austin, what would you do different in life? Could be in business.
I don't know if I would necessarily do anything different, because I wouldn't have had the lessons and the hardships and the highs without that. So I don't think that I would have done anything differently, even though there's moments that completely sucked and there's moments that were absolutely amazing. I wouldn't be where I am today without those.
Yeah, well said. Well done. Tell us something, now be careful here, but tell us something tell us something of interest about you that not many people, or Gavin Coyle would not know.
Okay.
You know, it's a fun fact.
Absolutely. Yes. Can I do two? I'm going to do two.
Yeah, oh wow. Both barrels.
Travel is so important to me. So I had a goal of getting my kids to 48 states before they graduated high school in the US. I got them to 44.
Wow.
And then last August, stages of life. It was a low point, right? So I created a bucket list of 100 different things. And I've been checking off this bucket list. I think I have 36 checked off. I just got back from Italy last week, and I'm actually going to Europe for 3 months, March, April, and May. And I've got this bucket list thing that I'm just checking off. And so there's something really powerful about putting out an intention and working towards something that it changes your life.
Well done. I love that. Well said. And you're welcome to Europe, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of callers that might be getting in touch with you to say, listen, stop over. I might have an employee thing to talk to you about.
Absolutely. I welcome it.
Favorite book or movie, or both?
Yeah. So the book that I just read on the way back from Italy was The Life Impossible, and it was incredible.
Okay. Talk to me. Why?
It was essentially, what it was about this woman who, I think she was in her 70s, and was like, all these things have happened, and she was sitting in her apartment just feeling sorry for herself. She got a call that said, let's go to some island in Spain, and I'm lacking the name. Anyway.
Canary Islands.
And so, what was that?
Canary Islands, probably.
Yeah. So she did, and what happened is all of these kind of, it was a series of events of all of the little things in life that we overlook, whether it is the connection with others, whether it is a belief in a higher power, whether it is the good guys can actually win. And, this idea of, this life that is there that we may think is impossible based on our thinking, but is 100% available for us if we just step into it.
Love it. Love it. Have you finished the book, obviously?
Yes. It was incredible.
Brilliant. Traci, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? Why would they do it? You do a lot of training as well. So obviously you could do online training. I take it doesn't have to be in person. Your services doesn't have to be in person. Maybe give the audience and the viewers some sort of a direction of the website, yourself. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We run about eight sessions of our leadership development program a year, and those are both virtual. So I've got a virtual program starting in January, and these are for, But almost everything we talked about today with accountability, with mindset, with how we coach, that's all in our leadership development program. And then we also post lots of content out on LinkedIn. So Elevated Talent Consulting or Traci Austin on LinkedIn, you can get that. And we'll also throw in the show notes what I call our Tough Talk blueprint. So kind of how we go through to have these conversations. You can go ahead and download that. And there's more information in that as well.
And we'll put the scorecard, which is a great tool. And for anybody listening or watching, that is a massive takeaway as well. Believe me, if you use that scorecard and follow the direction from Traci, even if you don't use someone like Traci, that scorecard is very valuable. Traci Austin.
But they want to contact me. They do want to use us.
100% after this, they're going to definitely do speed dial. How soon can you get here? Traci, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed today's show. Had great fun. It got technical, but it got technical to the point that we didn't go too far away from people. And I think a lot of listeners will take a lot out of that discussion today, because they are struggling with labour. They are struggling to attract labour. They are struggling to hold on to labour. There's a race to get the best people within construction. We all know that. And it's people like yourself that are, in high demand, because I have to find them first, I have to get them, and then I have to hold on to them. And you're helping the glue for that to come together. So well done. And we'd love to get you back on the show again in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Traci. Have a great day.
You too.
Just hang